Now all I can see is chaos and confusion and panic.
Greetings, and welcome to Ancient Library and Tome 31, Free Eye Atlas and the Interstellar Madness, which is going on right now. So in 2017, the first object of interstellar origin was found, with Oumuamua. Only 2 years later, 2I Borisov was discovered, and now in 2025, precise on July the 1st, we got the third object labeled as an interstellar visitor, Free Eye Atlas, and these three objects for themselves are exciting and fascinating, but the psychological and collectively educational aspects cannot be ignored. The frequency on which conversations on the subject are conducted are present in a broad spectrum, from Occam's razor purists over terrestrial human hubris to conjurers of the spirit of the Outrages hypothesis. I've even come across astrophysicists which mentioned the significant effects of comets on human consciousness, so the hype is real. The first designated interstellar object discovered in 2017 was 1I Oumuamua, which was coming in maneuvering on a so-called Goldilocks route, implying a certain trajectory pushing more creative minds to approach theories which label Oumuamua as an alien probe, using stars like our sun to accelerate in a sun-sail function type of process, and gather data potentially with focus on finding habitable worlds. For our senses, it resembles something like an elongated thin rock, not really a thing we normally label a comet. Nevertheless, a strange object, overshadowed by the baseline strangeness of it being the first interstellar object, regardless of its properties. Clearly a milestone, no pun intended, for itself. No cometary tail, a strange shape, unusual acceleration and high amount of tumble are just some properties of Oumuamua, which seemingly also was the breakthrough moment for Avi Loeb's work and books to get a lot of mainstream traction, embedding his voice, which is clearly more pro-aliens and pro-ufology, in astronomy and astrophysics journals, casting controversial frequencies upon his persona in certain circles. I digress, but we will connect some dots later in the program. The second interstellar object, or in this case actually most likely an interstellar comet, was labeled 2I Borisov and was discovered or completely designated in 2019. This object is the most, I will say, normal out of the three, and got all the properties of a normal comet. The nucleus is surrounded by a huge coma, and the cometary tail, which was described 14 times the size of Earth, at least at the point in time the comet passed Earth in November-December 2019. So the second interstellar object really seems like it's just a comet from another star system, or place in the universe which doesn't carry super exotic properties compared to other, more local comets. The third interstellar object, 3I Atlas, which is currently, as I'm making this video, 36 hours away from his closest approach to Mars, which is indeed really close. It will pass by Mars at a distance of 0.19 AU, which is 28 million kilometers, on October the 3rd, 2025. And its whole trajectory is described as extremely hyperbolic and coincidentally aligns with the orbital planes of the solar system planets, making it come close to Mars, Venus, Jupiter, but not Earth. In terms of speed, it's almost double as fast as Oumuamua or Borisov, with around 60 km per second compared to Borisov 32 km per second and Oumuamua 26 km per second. This object, at least speaking with my non-professional opinion, seems very peculiar, and the effects of the influence of our sun are producing weird effects, for example the color change from blue to green, implying that the diatomic carbon molecules in the coma are getting excited by ultraviolet light, but measurements did not predict any of those emissions from the alleged comet as of now. So already here we are seeing how our science experts are struggling to flawlessly classify 3I Atlas without any conflicting predictions. We also got, due to sublimation of the comet in its natural process interacting with stars, a certain release of almost pure nickel, which isn't normal, because as far as I'm getting it, nickel and iron attracts each other in nature, and therefore it's somewhat normal for comets to release both compounds while sublimating in our solar system. Some scientists say the current temperature around 3I Atlas is too cold to cause those metals to sublimate at the observed rate, which reflects in the greenish color the alleged comet is having right now. Also to mention here is the so-called reverse cometary tail, which is pointing towards the sun and not away from it, which is kinda rare and unusual. The age of the interstellar object was predicted to be somewhere in between 3 to 7 billion years. So this object potentially is way older than our whole solar system and therefore everything inside of it. So astronomers and astrophysicists are the experts. A few of those are specialized on comets, and a potential new subsector which could be interstellar objects. So the current state of information flow in our society in this circumstance equals high noise and high clickbait, based on high interests from a huge group of uneducated people browsing through the matter. A foreign subject matter for most of the populace, which still got potential to affect every human on the planet, at least in a general, educational sense of establishing new fields in astronomy and astrophysics. In other words, there's a great chance and opportunity for those who are experts willing to tell the truth to the public to the best of their ability. Many discussions, not only initiated by the curiosity of the uneducated layman, are ending up in the statement of Free Eye Atlas and interstellar objects as a whole are a new class of celestial objects for which, if at all, small parts of academical knowledge are able to project anything of value or accuracy, if visited in retrospect. So a core statement of, since it's an interstellar object, none of the usual rules and concepts are necessarily working, speaking of comparing local objects or comets from our solar system. A quick analogy would be if we enter another country, all of our knowledge in an area, for example how cars work, are almost nullified, because the rules are different in another country, which would equal the label interstellar in principle. This realization requires the initial drive for the search for truth. If that's not present, this whole academic line would be stagnant, based on the unwillingness to start from zero and establish new, necessary fields in a respective area of science, in this case the interstellar object subsector of astronomy and astrophysics. So Free Eye Atlas was not predicted to perform a green emerald glow-up, which goes with an unexpected increase in brightness, respective the albedo of the alleged interstellar comet. So this is one example of how science works normally in a world in which new things appear on the horizon regularly. And like I already mentioned, it's now in the hands of honest, enthusiastic experts to provide crystal clear and digestible research using this opportunity to do great and timeless work for humanity. Bottom line is, all three interstellar objects are clearly different in nature, but share the same designation of having an exotic origin. All three of them are different in color, shape, and composition, and the emissions created by reactions with our sun and its radiation are vastly different. And many people are saying that Wednesday, 29th of October, will be the moment of truth, on which it's expected for us to get the critical or crucial chunk of data, which hopefully leads our scientists to give a clear and holistic assessment or explanation for Free Eye Atlas. This is the time after the object performed its so-called perihelion, which is the point in the orbit at which it is closest to the Sun. So let's go over a short list I've created, which contains 5 more out there explanations, especially but not exclusively for the third interstellar object, Free Eye Atlas. The first and most hyperbolic scenario is that Free Eye Atlas is an artificial object not built by any familiar Earth-human society, so implying not only the existence but also the initiation of contact of an extraterrestrial race. This explanation can be the base point for other more, I would say, advanced theories, including for example the reason for the reverse tail of Free Eye Atlas are some kind of counter or landing thrusters, effects caused by some kind of propulsion device. The second one, which is also strongly connected to point 1, is the hypothesis of Free Eye Atlas being some kind of Turing test for the current, thriving civilization on Earth. So if we are collectively smart enough to understand and decipher this interstellar object and not letting it fall through the net of wrong classifications. The third one is Free Eye Atlas isn't artificial, but doesn't provide the requirements to be a comet. So in this case, it would be ending up as a whole new type of celestial object which was previously unknown to mankind. And we are allowed to see it now. Maybe due to this being the very first appearance in this rather small time frame, our civilization is able to observe the skies in a sophisticated way. Or a scenario in which many of these objects passed Earth, but our technological ability wasn't good enough until this point, maybe in combination with a certain rarity of these objects and so forth. The next scenario is Free Eye Atlas being an artificial object, but not built by any alien race, but instead by a rather advanced terrestrial human civilization from past times, like Atlantis, for example. Or an older ancient breakaway civilization, Subterran or Inner Earth, you name it. This scenario contains an approach of connecting the artificial origin to more controversial theory, speaking of sophisticated folks who supposedly created the spacecraft or probe, what we perceive as the interstellar comet, Free Eye Atlas. The last scenario, and the most conspiratorial one, is that Free Eye Atlas is part of a prologue for a fake alien invasion scenario, involving all kinds of, I would say, creative theories like Project Bluebeam and certain psyop-esque concepts, embedding a third-party narrative like a clear hostile alien race conducting attacks on our civilization. opening all kinds of doors to geopolitical and strategical and new world order type scenarios, or a fictional enemy controlled by the, I would say, deep state, using, creating or mimicking this interstellar object as an arrival stage of evil extraterrestrial forces, all together built up as a long-term plan involving all kinds of pre-planned narratives and so on. You get the gist. Pretty out there scenario in general, because I'm pretty sure even with amateur equipment it's possible to observe 3i Atlas, and the thought of the manipulation of all the data is borderline flat earth believer level. But I want to put everything on the table here. So these are 5 more or less crazy theories, clearly in coherence with the spirit of the Outrages hypothesis, and in the realms of the unthinkable for conduits of the opposite, the spirit of Occam's razor. And yeah, I've took those phrases from Randall Carlson, and at this point I will give him his props, and say he's a great guy and educator, and I'm happy to learn something from him, and I will link his recent coverage of the interstellar object and general work in the box below. So what is 3i Atlas? An exotic outlier or artificial misnomer. Everything which comes into our range of celestial observation will be ending up in a certain type of known category at first, but after more data comes in, an alien spacecraft, for example, would provide somewhat conflicting data, more or less like the current state of evaluation of the alleged interstellar comet. Additionally, we can say that the projected trajectory is pretty special, and the chances of a foreign object moving so close to 3 planets in our solar system altogether maneuvers, according to reports, around 0.005%. If this is correct, it's very low indeed, but not impossible. Also to mention are reports about the so-called WOW signal, which was received on August 15, 1977, which allegedly was coming from a location aligning with the past trajectory of 3i Atlas within 9 degrees, an occurrence which is described to happen at a chance of 0.6%. Which not really seems to be random at all, at least in my opinion, but I want to state that the scientific, I will say, acceptance of the WOW signal is highly disputed. But yeah, the chances of alignment with 3i Atlas are still on the table, implying the extreme low chances of randomly getting an even, if it's controversial, alleged signal from a point in space, which coincidentally matches with a point of the trajectory of 1 out of 3 interstellar objects. So maybe they just want to unload their troops on Mars and proceed to prepare an invasion from a safe distance, jokes aside. But even if the most unspectacular scenario regarding 3i Atlas would turn into reality, this still is a milestone type of moment for humanity and especially astronomy and astrophysics. Sometimes people are just so locked into their daily life that these things just happen and that's that. But a few hundred or thousands of these moments really seem to define our whole civilization and the levels on which science is maneuvering, in this case just via observing and studying the actions of the living cosmos, which fills the thing we label the universe. And this even counts if 3i Atlas ends up to be a confirmed natural but fascinating celestial object. So 1i Oumuamua was special, but special in a different way as 3i Atlas. Totally different. No normal comet, more like a rocky spear tumbling through space, in the most controversial case, an unmanned alien probe scouting the Goldilocks zones of distant worlds. 2i Borisov is most likely, according to my limited horizon regarding the deeper science of the subject, a comet, but originating from a more exotic place than familiar normal comets. But still, comets aren't subject to being exclusive to our solar system, so maybe rare, but nothing really new in terms of core classification. 3i Atlas is seemingly getting weirder and weirder, and is doing unexpected stuff on a weekly basis. And with the current upcoming events caused by our sun and its perihelion, I'm positive that we will know a lot more in a month or two. But the next question is, will we be previewed to that? Or will NASA wait with such significant announcements for a year like they have done with the newest findings on Mars? I hope the truth will prevail. So there are 2 more things which I want to address briefly in this video. The first thing is another comet which goes by the designation R2 Swan and was discovered exactly 3 weeks ago on September the 11th, 2025. And if we look at the location and trajectory of this brand new comet, which isn't interstellar, but this case shows again, we know or see everything until we don't. And this comet will come very close to Earth, to be exact 0.26 AU astronomical units, which are 39 million kilometers or 24 million miles, on October the 20th, 2025. So I think it's funny that we are having more wild apocalyptic theories out there considering 3i Atlas, but coincidentally we discover another local comet which has a much closer approach to Earth. All of this, the discovery and the flyby, occur within the same time frame 3i Atlas is performing its visitation from a very distant place. For comparison, 3i Atlas will still have 270 million kilometers or 170 million miles distance to Earth at his closest projected point on his route. R2 Swan will have 39 million kilometers or 24 million miles. So this is, yeah, a great difference. So R2 Swan isn't the only comet who is relatively close to our planet this season. We got multiple other comets coming in from all kinds of angles. One of those is comet C2025 A6 Lemon, which I'm able to observe with the naked eye from my location in the northern hemisphere. And it's kinda great that we are having such an intense comet season right now. If we include 3i Atlas, which is hard to observe due to its trajectory, I think we got 4 visible comets at the same time. One last fact, which I could not ignore, is that Comet Swan and Comet Lemon will have their closest approach to Earth at almost the same time, around October 20th and 21st, only a few hours apart from each other. Maybe there is an easy explanation for this regarding rhythms and cycles in nature, but if not, this is a pretty wild coincidence. By the way, I appreciate any input in the comments, and the second thing I want to address is the Mars situation. So even from my layman perspective, I'm aware that it will be quasi-impossible to set up a public livestream from Mars to get a visual of 3i Atlas passing by in a few hours. But on the other hand, I think it's kinda disappointing that no effort, or at least an impulse, in that direction, which is to increase our bandwidth of incoming data considering 3i Atlas with everything we can. To learn more about the seemingly rare and mysterious object passing by Mars like it's an intergalactic bus stop. I got a feeling Mars is the place where many secrets are hidden, and if our current human civilization is in possession of any device with advanced exotic propulsion capabilities, it's to assume that Mars is the place where all the really secret stuff takes place, moving in the direction of all kind of very out there theories, which I will explore in an upcoming video. But I wanted to highlight the scientific potential and seemingly limited, at least perceived in the public, enthusiasm in regards to the willingness to use any potential equipment on Mars to gather additional data on the interstellar visitor which is flying close by. So in the near future, hopefully, we will still be provided with answers, not only on 3i Atlas, but on all past and upcoming interstellar visitors, which seem to increase in number. And with that, the chances to obtain new knowledge, which gets literally shot into our system, waiting to be unpacked. I will stay on the subject and recommend you to check out the library for other videos about interesting topics, for which I already got content available. And thank you for watching this video. I will be back soon. LIBRA.
Also das sind zum Beispiel solche Kornkreise erschienen. Das ist zum Beispiel ein Kornkreis, da haben wir schon im 99er Jahr vermutet, dass das was mit Kometen zu tun hat. Ich glaube immer noch, dass es ein aktuelles Thema ist. Da kommt sozusagen in diese Schwingungen da herein irgend so ein komischer Körper, der da auf das System zufliegt. Ja? So, der ist schon irgendwo im Anflug, aber die Manifestation von dem wird sich erst zu irgendeinem Zeitpunkt darstellen, die wir noch nicht kennen. Sind mehrere solche Kreise erschienen, die andeuten, dass möglicherweise in dem Gesamtszenario, wenn es auch politisch und wirtschaftlich drunter und drüber geht, auch von kosmologischer Seite her noch sozusagen das Tüpferl am I draufgesetzt wird, indem dann irgendein so Asteroid dann auf unsere Erde herunterkracht und das dann endgültig besiegelt. Wann das sein wird, wissen wir nicht genau. Aber dass es Kornkreise in diese Richtung gegeben hat, das ist gewiss. Und zwar ganz am Ende.